Italy is on fire, not literally, but politically, socially, and emotionally. For the first time in decades, thousands of Italians have taken to the streets, not for football, not for wages, not even for corruption scandals, but for Palestine. Yes, in Milan, in Rome, across Italy, ordinary citizens, not Palestinians, not Arabs, not Muslims, but the Italians themselves are protesting against their own government's refusal to recognize Palestine. Think about that for a second. A Western European country whose government said no to recognizing Palestine, now facing riots, shutdowns, clashes, and what looks like the beginning of a generational shift in global politics. This isn't just about Italy. This is about the West finally spreading on the Israel-Palestine issue. So, what the hell happened in Italy? Why are young Europeans suddenly marching with Palestinian flags? And why does this scare not just Israel but America, NATO, and the entire Western order? Let's break it down. 2 years ago, if you told anyone that 150 countries would move toward recognizing Palestine, people would laugh. Palestine was painted as terrorist, Israel as the victim. But in just 24 months, the narrative flipped. Why? Because of the new generation. For decades, the Western controlled the story. Textbooks skipped over the Nakba. Media framed every Palestinian as a Hamas fighter. Every child killed was collateral damage. But Gen Z, they don't buy that anymore. They see the TikTok, the drone footage, the bombed out schools, the crying parents. They read history online, not just in censored textbooks. And suddenly, Israel doesn't look like the victim anymore. That's why you're seeing Italy, France, England, Monaco, even Ireland, all cracking under public pressure. Now, let's zoom in on Italy. The government refused to recognize Palestine. Immediately after, boom, Milan exploded. Protests, stone pelting, riots, train stations shut down, highways blocked, shops closed. And here's the kicker. These weren't Palestinian refugees. These were Italian citizens. Imagine being Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni right now. She thought she was playing it safe siding with the US and Israel. Instead, she ignited one of the biggest uprisings in modern Italian politics. This isn't just a protest. This is a warning shot to Western leaders. Your people are done with blind support for Israel. But here's the problem. For decades, America and Europe locked in. NATO was unified. Israel had a safety net. Now that net is tearing apart. France officially announced recognition of Palestine. England raised the Palestinian flag. Monaco joined in. Qatar, Saudi, Russia are pushing even harder. And Italy's streets are on fire. This leaves America isolated and Israel more vulnerable than ever. Because once Europe turns, America can force democracy down anyone's throat. The moral high ground disappears. And here's where it gets darker. Putin sees this, Russia sees this, and they're ready to exploit every crack. While all this is happening, another layer unfolds. Unidentified drones spotted over Copenhagen airport. Entire operations shut down. Panic, confusion. Who launched them? Nobody knows. But here's what it means. Europe is no longer safe. Whether it's cyber attacks, drones, or mass protests, Europe is facing pressure from all sides. Italy's riots are just one piece of a larger puzzle. The West is losing control of its own citizens. And this is the part the leaders hate. Because you can silence opposition parties, you can ban unions, you can censor media, but you cannot stop millions of young people from marching in the streets, chanting, "Free Palestine." That's why Italy matters. That's why the story is bigger than this recognition of Palestine. It's about the collapse of Western narrative control. Let's talk pop culture, because even that's shifting. Dua Lipa, yes, global pop star Dua Lipa, just fired her Israeli manager because he openly supported Israel. Think about it. This isn't a random activist. This is one of the biggest names in music taking a stand. Celebrities, influencers, TikTok creators, they're all joining the movement. And if you think politicians are powerful, wait till you see what happens when culture turns against you. Because culture shapes identity, and identity shapes politics. I chose the plot twist. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas just said, "We want a unified state without weapons. Hamas must surrender arms to the Palestinian Authority." This is huge because it signals Palestine doesn't just want survival. It wants legitimacy, a real state, a government recognized globally. That's a nightmare for Israel and America. Because once Palestine is recognized, Israel becomes an occupier on paper, not just in protest. And that opens the door for war crimes trials, sanctions, and global isolation. So what happens now? Well, the next 24 months are critical. More countries will recognize Palestine. Protests in Europe will grow. America will double down on Israel. Russia, China, and the Middle East will exploit the cracks. And ordinary people, they'll keep marching. Because once people see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't unlearn history. And you can't go back to believing propaganda. Italy thought it could just say no to Palestine and move on. Instead, it triggered one of the biggest domestic uprisings in decades. And that's a bigger story. The West is no longer united. The youths are no longer silent, and the world is no longer buying the narrative. This isn't just about Palestine. It's about a new global order being born in the streets of Milan, Rome, Paris, and beyond. So the question isn't, will Palestine be recognized? The real question is, how long can America and Israel hold back the tide when their own allies, their own people, and even their own celebrities have already switched sides? Because once history turns, there's no going back.